For 3,000 years the galaxy had known peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from understanding or cooperation, but the cold, suffocating silence that follows absolute defeat. Ancient civilizations whispered warnings across the void: never wake the silence keepers, never challenge the eternal calm. The Zephyrian Empire had tried once, sending their greatest war fleet into the dark sectors. They returned as floating hulks, their crews alive but forever changed, speaking only in monotone voices about the beauty of eternal quiet. The Korthak Confederation had attempted to break the silence with their reality-bending weapons. Their homeworld still existed, but no sound had emerged from its surface for 2 millennia. Across 1,000 worlds, advanced species lived in careful, muted existence. They built their cities with sound dampeners, spoke in whispers, and taught their children that the greatest virtue was silence. The galaxy's most brilliant scientists had concluded that sound itself was somehow fundamentally dangerous, that the universe demanded quiet. But they were all wrong. The silence wasn't natural law. It wasn't cosmic balance. It was a cage, built by creatures so ancient and powerful that entire civilizations had forgotten they were prisoners. For 3,000 years, the Silence Keepers had fed on the stifled potential of a million worlds, growing fat on suppressed creativity, muffled laughter, and songs never sung. Then humanity invented rock music, and everything changed. Captain Sarah Chen had always been told that space was supposed to be quiet. Every training manual, every deep space protocol, every piece of alien technology they'd encountered since making first contact with the Galactic Council emphasized the same thing: maintain audio discipline, keep communications to essential whispers, and never, ever make unnecessary noise in the void. The UES Harmony drifted through the Kepler 442 system, its engines running on the lowest possible setting. Sarah watched her crew move through their duties with the practiced silence that had become second nature to every human who'd ventured beyond Earth's atmosphere. It had been 15 years since humanity joined the galactic community, and they'd learned quickly that survival meant following the rules. Captain, whispered Communications Officer Rodriguez, his voice barely audible over the ship's life support systems. "We're receiving a distress signal from the research station on Kepler 442b. Sarah moved to his station, her magnetic boots making only the softest clicks against the metal floor. The signal was weak, transmitted on the emergency frequency that the Galactic Council had designated for truly desperate situations. As she listened to the message, her blood ran cold. "This is Dr. Elena Vasquez at Research Station Prometheus. We've made a discovery. The silence, it's not natural. The archaeological site we've been excavating contains technology that predates every known civilization. The artifacts are responding to sound, but the moment we activate them, something starts hunting us. We've lost contact with the outer perimeter teams. If anyone receives this message, stay away from Kepler 442b. The silence isn't protection. It's a prison, and something doesn't want us to break free." The message cut off abruptly, leaving the bridge in the kind of absolute quiet that made Sarah's ears ring. She looked around at her crew, seeing her own confusion reflected in their faces. Vasquez was one of Earth's most respected xenoarchaeologists, not someone given to wild theories or panic. "Options?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a breath. Navigation Officer Kim checked his instruments. "The station is 3 hours away at current speed. No other ships in the system." Rodriguez tried to raise them again. For the next hour they sent careful, whispered messages toward Kepler 442b, but received only silence in return. Sarah found herself pacing the narrow bridge, something nagging at the back of her mind. The Galactic Council had specific protocols for situations like this. They were supposed to report the incident, wait for a council response team, and under no circumstances investigate on their own. But Sarah had spent her childhood on Luna Colony, where Earth's old music still played in the underground clubs. She remembered her grandmother's stories about the time before contact, when humans had filled space with radio signals, music, and the chaotic noise of a species that refused to be quiet. The galaxy had seemed so much larger then, full of possibilities rather than restrictions. "Captain," Science Officer Park spoke up, her voice so soft Sarah almost missed it. "I've been analyzing the star charts for this region. There's something odd about the stellar formations here." Sarah moved to Park Station, where complex gravitational models filled the screen. "What am I looking at? The stars in this sector are arranged in a pattern that shouldn't occur naturally." "It's subtle, but if you map the gravitational fields, they form a kind of acoustic dampening field on a stellar scale.
Any large sound source in this region would be naturally absorbed and dissipated.
You're saying someone moved stars? I'm saying someone with incredibly advanced technology could have used stellar engineering to create a massive sound suppression system. The question is why? Sarah stared at the display, feeling pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. The research station found pre-civilization artifacts that respond to sound, in a stellar region specifically designed to suppress sound.
That's not a coincidence. She made a decision that would have horrified her academy instructors. All stop. Full power to sensors. I want a complete scan of that planet. The crew exchanged glances. Extended sensor sweeps required significant power output, and the energy signatures could be detected across half the system. It was the kind of aggressive scanning that the Galactic Council had taught them to avoid. Captain, Rodriguez said carefully, active scanning protocols require Council authorization. The Council isn't here. Those researchers are. As the Harmony sensors came online, Sarah felt a familiar thrill. For the first time since leaving Earth, she was making command decisions based on human judgment rather than alien protocols. The main screen filled with data as their instruments penetrated Kepler 442b's atmosphere. The planet was a treasure trove of archaeological sites. Massive structures dotted the surface, clearly artificial but unlike anything in the Council databases. More importantly, the structures were arranged in geometric patterns that seemed designed to channel and amplify acoustic waves. I'm reading massive underground chambers, Park reported, her voice gaining strength as excitement overcame caution. The entire planet appears to be honeycombed with acoustic resonance chambers. This isn't just an archaeological site. It's a machine, and it's designed to produce sound. An idea was forming in her mind, wild and dangerous and completely against everything they'd been taught. Rodriguez, open a channel to Earth Command.
Come, they, cheek.
Maximum power, full spectrum broadcast. Captain, that's... Rodriguez stopped himself, seeing the determination in her eyes.
Yes, ma'am.
As the communication array powered up, the ship's ambient noise level increased noticeably. The normally whisper-quiet bridge filled with the hum of electronics, the soft whoosh of air recyclers, and the subtle vibrations of a ship operating at full capacity. Earth Command, this is Captain Chen aboard the UES Harmony. We've discovered evidence of pre-civilization technology in the Kepler 442 system. The stellar arrangement in this region appears to be artificial, designed for large-scale sound suppression. We believe the galactic silence protocols may be based on incomplete information about the nature of the threat. The message would take 47 minutes to reach Earth and 47 more for a response. Sarah settled into her command chair waiting. Around her, the crew continued their work, but she noticed something interesting. As they operated at normal power levels rather than the reduced capacity mandated by silence protocols, their efficiency improved dramatically. Conversations flowed more naturally, alerts were clearer, and the constant background stress of forced whispers seemed to lift. Captain, Park called out, her voice now at normal conversational levels. I'm detecting something strange. Since we began active scanning, the archaeological sites on the planet are showing increased energy signatures. It's as if our sensor beams are activating dormant systems. Sarah leaned forward. Show me. The main screen displayed a real-time view of the planet's surface. Across multiple continents, ancient structures were beginning to glow with soft, pulsing lights. The patterns were beautiful, spreading outward from the largest sites like ripples on a pond. It's responding to our scanning frequencies. Park breathed. The entire planet is waking up. That's when they heard it. At first, it was just a faint harmonic, barely detectable above the ship's background noise. But as the lights on the planet's surface grew brighter, the sound became clearer. It was music, but unlike anything Sarah had ever heard. It seemed to resonate not just in the air, but in the metal of the ship itself, in the bones of everyone on board. Are you getting this, Rodriguez? Yes, Captain. It's coming from the planet's surface. But also, he frowned at his instruments. It's everywhere. The entire system is resonating. The music grew stronger, and with it came something Sarah hadn't felt since leaving Earth. Joy. Pure, undiluted joy that made her want to laugh out loud, to sing along, to throw aside 15 years of careful whispers and silence protocols. Captain, Navigation Officer Kim's voice cracked with excitement. The stellar dampening field is collapsing. The gravitational anomalies that were suppressing acoustic transmission are destabilizing. On the main screen, they watched as the stars themselves seemed to brighten. Energy readings spiked across the board as the artificial constraints on the system began to break down. The music from the planet grew louder, more complex, adding harmonies and rhythms that spoke to something deep in human nature. Then Rodriguez received a priority signal from Earth Command.
Captain Chen, this is Admiral Martinez. We've analyzed your report and cross-referenced it with classified xenoarchaeological data.
You need to know that the Council has been lying to us. The silence protocols aren't about maintaining peaceful relationships with unknown species. They're about maintaining control. We've discovered evidence that an ancient species called the Silence Keepers has been using acoustic suppression to control galactic civilization for millennia.
Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Admiral, what are your orders? The President has authorized Operation Joyful Noise.
You are to proceed with full acoustic activation of any pre-civilization technology you can locate. Humanity is officially breaking the silence.
The transmission cut to static as the stellar dampening field fluctuated. But Sarah had heard enough. She turned to her crew, seeing the same mixture of fear and excitement in their faces that she felt in her heart. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the bridge for the first time in 15 years, "we're about to find out what this galaxy sounds like when it's allowed to sing." Park was bent over her console, tracking the energy cascades spreading across the planet.
"Captain, the activation is accelerating. The resonance chambers are beginning to synchronize. If this continues, the acoustic pulse will be detectable across multiple star systems."
"How long until full activation?"
"At current rate, maybe 6 hours.
"But Captain, there's something else. I'm detecting ship signatures moving toward our position. Multiple vessels, definitely not human." Sarah felt her stomach tighten.
The Council enforcement fleets were fast, but not this fast, unless they'd been waiting. How many ships? 7 confirmed contacts, more appearing on long-range sensors. They're using some kind of acoustic jamming technology. Our communications are being disrupted. The bridge shook slightly as an unknown energy field washed over the ship.
The beautiful music from the planet flickered and distorted, like a radio signal being jammed. On the main screen, the glowing patterns across Kepler 442b's surface began to dim.
They're trying to put it back to sleep, Sarah realized. Whatever that planet is, whatever it was built to do, someone really doesn't want it to wake up. She thought about her grandmother's stories, about a time when humans had filled space with rock music and radio dramas, when Earth's children had reached for the stars with songs on their lips instead of whispers. She thought about 15 years of careful silence, of muted existence, of a galaxy that had forgotten how to sing. "Rodriguez, I want you to open every communication channel we have. Full power, all frequencies."
"Captain, I want you to patch in our entire music database. Everything from Bach to metal, jazz to electronic, folk songs to symphonies.
If that planet responds to sound, let's give it the full spectrum of human expression." Rodriguez's hands flew over his controls. "Channel open, Captain. Music database loaded and ready for transmission." Sarah took a deep breath, thinking about the choice she was making. She was about to violate every protocol Earth had agreed to when joining the galactic community. She was about to declare acoustic war on forces that had kept an entire galaxy quiet for 3,000 years. But as she looked at the dimming lights on Kepler 442b's surface, as she felt the oppressive weight of forced silence pressing down on her ship, she realized she didn't care about protocols anymore. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Harmony," she announced, her voice carrying across multiple star systems for the first time in human history. "We are citizens of Earth, children of a world that refuse to be silent. To any species listening, to any civilization that remembers what it means to sing, to any world that dreams of breaking free from imposed quiet, this transmission is for you." She nodded to Rodriguez, who activated the music transmission. The first song that filled the void was her grandmother's favorite, "Born to be Wild" by Steppenwolf. Raw, rebellious rock and roll from an era when humanity had thought anything was possible.
The guitar riffs cut through space like a knife through silk, and the planet below responded immediately. The lights blazed back to life, brighter than before.
The ancient structures began to pulse in rhythm with the music, and the resonance chambers, deep underground, started to sing along. But more importantly, the approaching ships faltered. Their acoustic jamming systems, designed to suppress careful whispers and moderate sound levels, were completely overwhelmed by the sheer audacity of human rock music. Sarah smiled as she watched the tactical display. The enforcement fleet was scrambling to adapt their jamming technology, but they'd never encountered anything like this. They'd spent 3,000 years learning to silence civilizations that produced gentle music, harmonious songs, and respectful communication protocols. They had no idea how to deal with a species that had invented death metal. As the Harmony's transmission continued, more lights appeared across Kepler 442b's surface. Not just the archaeological sites now, but new structures, rising from beneath the planet's crust. This is the book, it's about history. 442b's surface. Not just the archaeological sites now, but new structures, rising from beneath the planet's crust. The world was transforming before their eyes, revealing its true purpose as layer after layer of sound-activated technology came online. And in the distance, Sarah could see something else. New contacts on the long-range sensors. But these weren't enforcement ships. These were moving differently, uncertainly, as if their crews were making decisions they hadn't made in centuries. Other ships were coming to investigate the music. Other species were remembering what they'd lost. The revolution had begun, and it sounded like a symphony played at maximum volume. The first alien ship to respond wasn't what Sarah expected. The vessel that dropped out of hyperspace near Kepler, 442b, was massive, easily 10 times the size of the Harmony, but it moved with hesitant, almost tentative maneuvers. Its hull bore the intricate geometric patterns of the Zephyrian Empire, but something was different. Instead of the matte black stealth coating that characterized Zephyrian military vessels, this ship gleamed with metallic surfaces that seemed designed to resonate rather than absorb.
"Captain," Rodriguez called out, his voice tight with excitement. "We're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian vessel. It's not following standard council protocols. Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge was unlike any Zephyrian communication Sarah had ever heard. Instead of the flat, emotionless monotone that characterized their species since their encounter with the Silence Keepers, this voice carried inflection, emotion, almost music. "Human vessel, this is Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian ship Resonance. We have been listening to your transmissions with great interest. Our ship's name has not been spoken aloud for 2,000 years. But your music has awakened something we thought was lost forever." Sarah exchanged glances with her crew. The Harmony's database contained extensive files on the Zephyrians, but everything they knew suggested the species had lost the ability to experience or express emotion after their disastrous encounter with the Silence Keepers. "Commander Veltar, this is Captain Chen. What do you mean, awakened something?" "Our medical officers report that crew members are experiencing what our ancient texts call harmonic resonance. Our bodies are remembering how to feel rhythm, how to respond to music. Captain Chen, we believe your species has accomplished something that was thought impossible. You have found a way to reverse the effects of the eternal calm." Park leaned over her instruments, scanning the approaching Zephyrian ship. "Captain, their vessel's structure is fascinating. It's designed with acoustic amplification chambers throughout the hull. This isn't a military ship. It's a music ship." "A what?" "The Zephyrians built this vessel specifically to produce and enhance sound. According to these readings, their entire ship is basically a massive musical instrument." On the main screen, the planet continued its transformation. Massive spires were rising from the surface, each one crowned with complex crystalline structures that caught starlight and converted it into harmonic frequencies. The music that had started with their rock transmission was evolving, incorporating new melodies and rhythms as the ancient machinery awakened. But the Council Enforcement Fleet wasn't giving up. The 7 ships had regrouped at the edge of the system, and their jamming signals were becoming more sophisticated. Sarah could see them adapting their technology, trying to find frequencies that could overwhelm even the most aggressive human music. "Rodriguez, what's the status on our music transmission?" "We're maintaining full spectrum broadcast, but the jamming is getting stronger. They're learning to counter our signals. Then we need to get louder." "Captain," Commander Veltar's voice interrupted. "We would like to add our voices to yours. The Resonance carries the complete musical archives of our civilization, everything we created in the 3 centuries before the silence. If we synchronize our transmissions," Sarah didn't hesitate. "Coordinates synchronized. Let's show this galaxy what it's been missing." The combined transmission was spectacular. Human rock music blended with the complex harmonic structures of Zephyrian classical composition, creating something entirely new. The planet below responded immediately, its transformation accelerating as more systems came online. But more importantly, other ships were arriving. The long-range sensors showed vessels dropping out of hyperspace throughout the system. Ships from a dozen different species, all moving with the same hesitant uncertainty as the Zephyrians. These weren't military vessels responding to alerts. These were explorers, scientists, artists who had heard impossible music echoing across the void and had come to investigate. "Captain," Park reported, "I'm reading massive energy buildups in the planet's core. Whatever this world was designed to do, we're approaching critical activation threshold. Estimated time to full activation? Maybe 2 hours, but the Council Enforcement Fleet is moving to intercept. They're targeting both us and the Zephyrian ship.
Sarah studied the tactical display. 7 enemy vessels against 2 exploration ships wouldn't normally be much of a contest, but the situation was far from normal. The music transmission was having unpredictable effects on all the ships in the system, and the ancient technology on the planet was creating interference patterns that made conventional weapons targeting extremely difficult. Commander Veltar, what kind of defensive capabilities does the Resonance have? Traditional weapons. But Captain Chen, I do not believe this conflict will be won through conventional means. Our xenoarchaeologists have been analyzing the planet's energy patterns. We believe this world is not just responding to our music. It is learning from it, incorporating our combined harmonic structures into its own operational matrix. You're saying the planet is becoming a musical instrument? More than that. We believe it is becoming a transmitter, designed to broadcast acoustic patterns across the entire galaxy. If our calculations are correct, full activation will break the Silence Keeper's control over every system within 50,000 light-years.
Sarah felt her breath catch. 50,000 light-years would encompass most of the galaxy's inhabited systems, including Earth.
The implications were staggering. How is that possible? The stellar engineering we detected earlier was not just local to this system. Long-range sensors are showing similar gravitational anomalies throughout this spiral arm. The Silence Keepers didn't just create a dampening field around one planet. They've turned entire sectors of the galaxy into acoustic suppression zones. But if this world can override the stellar controls, the transmission was interrupted by proximity alarms as the first Council enforcement ship opened fire. Energy beams lanced through space, targeting the Harmony's communication array. But something strange happened. As the weapon's fire approached, it seemed to curve away from the ship, deflected by the acoustic waves surrounding both human and Zephyrian vessels.
What just happened?
Sarah demanded. Park was frantically checking her instruments. The music transmission is creating some kind of protective field. The acoustic waves are interfering with directed energy weapons, causing them to lose coherence before impact. We're being protected by our own music? It appears so, but Captain, the effect is getting stronger. Look at the planet. The main screen showed Kepler 442b in the midst of dramatic change. The spires rising from its surface were now several kilometers tall, and they were beginning to harmonize with each other, creating a planet-wide musical composition that was both beautiful and alien.
More importantly, the acoustic effects were spreading beyond the planet's atmosphere. The space around Kepler
442b was filling with visible distortions as sound waves propagated through the quantum foam itself, creating patterns of interference that affected everything in the system. Ships that tried to approach too aggressively found their engines disrupted by harmonic interference, while vessels that moved in rhythm with the music seemed to flow effortlessly through space.
Captain Chen, Commander Veltar's voice carried new urgency. Our deep space sensors are detecting responses from other systems. The activation is spreading faster than we predicted.
What kind of responses? Similar acoustic signatures from archaeological sites in 12 different systems. The network is larger than we thought. This planet isn't just a transmitter, it's a relay station. The Silence Keepers built a galaxy-wide suppression network, but the ancient civilization that came before them built a galaxy-wide liberation network. Sarah realized they were witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. For 3,000 years, advanced civilizations had lived under artificial constraints, their natural development stunted by imposed silence. But the system that had been suppressing them was being turned against itself.
More ships were arriving every hour, and not just exploration vessels. Sarah was amazed to see luxury liners, cargo haulers, even private yachts dropping out of hyperspace to add their voices to the growing chorus.
Each ship carried its species' musical heritage, and the combined transmission was becoming something magnificent. The Korathak contributed deep, resonant tones that seemed to carry the weight of mountains. The ethereal collective added crystalline harmonies that sparkled like starlight. Even the normally aggressive Damarian war clans sent ships carrying their battle songs, fierce rhythms that spoke of honor and courage. But the Council enforcement fleet was growing too. Every hour brought more military vessels, and their jamming technology was becoming more sophisticated. Sarah could see them coordinating their efforts, trying to create destructive interference patterns that would overwhelm the music transmission. Captain Rodriguez reported, "The jamming is getting stronger.
Our transmission strength is down 15% and falling. Can we compensate? Not without drawing more power than our engines can safely provide." That's when the unexpected happened.
The Zephyrian ship Resonance began to transform. Sections of its hull extended outward, revealing massive acoustic chambers that had been hidden within the vessel's superstructure. The ship was literally reshaping itself into a gigantic musical instrument. "Commander Veltar, what are you doing?" Captain Chen, the resonance was designed for this moment. Our ancestors built this vessel in the years after our encounter with the Silence Keepers, hoping that someday we might find a way to break free. We are converting all our ship's power to acoustic amplification.
You're sacrificing your ship?
We are fulfilling its purpose. The resonance began to sing. The sound that emerged from the Zephyrian ship was unlike anything Sarah had ever heard.
It wasn't just music, it was pure emotion translated into acoustic form. 3,000 years of suppressed feelings, lost dreams, and silenced voices poured out in a harmonic cascade that made the entire system resonate. On Kepler 442b, the transformation reached a new level. The spires that had been rising from the surface suddenly activated, sending columns of light into space that connected with similar beams from the other awakening worlds. Within minutes, a network of light bridges spanned dozens of star systems, creating a visual representation of the acoustic connections that were binding the galaxy together. The Council enforcement fleet's jamming systems overloaded and failed. Their ships, designed to operate in absolute silence, found themselves caught in a web of harmonies that disrupted their every system. Some tried to retreat, but the acoustic effects followed them, carrying music to systems that hadn't heard natural sound in millennia. "Captain," Park announced, her voice filled with wonder, "the stellar engineering is reversing itself. The gravitational anomalies that created the suppression fields are collapsing. Stars are returning to their natural configurations." Sarah watched in amazement as the very structure of local space changed around them. Stars that had been artificially positioned to create acoustic dead zones were shifting back to their original locations, guided by gravitational waves that carried musical harmonies across interstellar distances. But the most extraordinary change was happening to the ships themselves. As the suppression fields collapsed and natural sound returned to space, every vessel in the system began to resonate with its crew's emotional state. Ship hulls hummed with contentment, engine cores sang with excitement, and even the computer system seemed to harmonize with their operators' feelings. "Rodriguez, try to contact Earth Command. Channel open, Captain. Signal strength is better than ever. It's like space itself is amplifying our transmission." "Earth Command, this is Captain Chen. The acoustic liberation protocol is working beyond all expectations. The suppression network is collapsing throughout this sector, and we estimate that over 200 star systems have experienced spontaneous awakening of pre-civilization technology." The response came immediately, carried on harmonics that made Admiral Martinez's voice ring like music. "Captain Chen, we're receiving your transmission perfectly. More importantly, we're receiving transmissions from alien species that haven't been heard from in centuries. The Andorian Symphonic Republic has just ended 3,000 years of silence. The melodic hegemony is broadcasting their lost symphonies across 17 systems. Captain, you've started a galactic renaissance." Sarah felt tears in her eyes as she listened to the reports. Throughout known space, civilizations were remembering who they used to be. Artists were creating again. Scientists were singing their theories instead of whispering them. And children were laughing without fear. But as she watched the celebration begin, her sensors detected something troubling. Deep space monitoring stations were picking up massive energy signatures from the galactic core, where the oldest and most powerful Silence Keeper installations were located. The real war was just beginning. "All ships, this is Captain Chen. I'm reading massive power buildups from the galactic core. Whatever we've awakened here, the Silence Keepers aren't going to give up without a fight." The music that filled the system took on a new quality, harmonies shifting to more urgent rhythms, as every species in the Liberation Fleet began to prepare for the battle that would determine whether the galaxy would sing freely or be forced back into eternal quiet. In the distance, the stars themselves began to sing, and Sarah knew that whatever came next, the universe would never be silent again. The Silence Keepers came not as ships, but as a wave of absolute quiet that swept across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds. Sarah first noticed it on the long-range sensors, a dark front moving outward from the galactic core, leaving dead silence in its wake. Stars dimmed as it passed, not because their light was blocked, but because the very concept of luminosity was being drained from space itself. The Liberation Network's light bridges flickered and went dark, one by one, as the wave of enforced quiet reclaimed system after system. "Captain," Park reported, her voice tight with fear, "the suppression wave is moving at approximately 300 times light speed. At current rate of expansion, it will reach our position in 4 hours. What happens when it gets here?" "Based on sensor data from affected systems, complete acoustic nullification. Not just sound suppression, but the removal of the physical laws that allow sound to exist. Matter loses its ability to vibrate. Energy cannot propagate in waveform. Everything becomes perfectly, eternally still.
Sarah studied the tactical display, watching the expanding circle of darkness consume everything in its path. The Silence Keepers weren't just trying to restore their control. They were rewriting the fundamental nature of reality to ensure that sound could never exist again. Commander Veltar, she called to the Zephyrian ship. Are you seeing this? Our xenoarchaeological databases contain references to this phenomenon. It is called the Final Silence, a last resort weapon that the Silence Keepers have never used before. They would rather destroy the universe than allow it to sing. Around them, the Liberation Fleet had grown to over 300 ships representing 47 different species. Each vessel contributed its unique acoustic signature to a growing symphony that spanned multiple star systems. But even with their combined power, Sarah couldn't see how they could stand against something that could rewrite physics itself. That's when Dr. Elena Vasquez finally made contact from the research station on Kepler 442b. Captain Chen, this is Dr. Vasquez. We've been analyzing the archaeological data, and I think we know how to stop the Final Silence. But it's going to require something that no one has ever attempted before. What do you need, Doctor? Every ship in the system needs to descend to the planet's surface and integrate with the resonance network. The ancient civilization that built this place didn't just create a communication system. They built a reality amplifier, a device that can reinforce the physical laws that allow sound and music to exist. But it requires conscious beings to operate it. Beings who understand both the mathematics of harmony and the emotional power of music. Sarah felt her stomach drop.
You're asking us to land our ships on an alien planet and plug into unknown technology? Captain, I know how it sounds, but the mathematics are solid.
The resonance network can create a quantum stabilization field that will prevent the Silence Keepers from rewriting local physics. But it needs the combined processing power of hundreds of ship computers and the creative input of thousands of sentient minds. Commander Veltar's voice cut through the discussion. Captain Chen, the resonance is already beginning descent. Our ship was designed for exactly this type of integration. If Dr. Kent Vasquez is correct, this may be our only chance. Sarah looked around the bridge at her crew. Rodriguez was nodding enthusiastically, Park was already calculating descent vectors, and Kim was plotting approach routes for the entire fleet. They all knew the risks, but they also knew what would happen if the Final Silence reached Earth. All ships, this is Captain Chen. We're going to attempt integration with the planetary resonance network. Follow the Zephyrian ship's approach vector and prepare for surface landing. This is either going to save the galaxy or get us all killed, but we're going to do it together. The descent was unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. As the ships entered Kepler 442b's atmosphere, the planet's resonance field began to interact with their hull structures, creating harmonic frequencies that seemed to guide them toward specific landing sites. The ancient spires that dotted the surface weren't just archaeological ruins. They were docking stations designed to integrate with spacecraft and connect them to the planetary network. The Harmony touched down near the largest complex, its hull immediately beginning to resonate with the crystalline structures around it. Through the viewport, Sarah could see similar landings happening across the planet as ships from dozens of species found their designated integration points. Captain, Park announced, the ship's computer systems are interfacing with the planetary network. I'm reading massive data flows, but also something else. The network is learning from us. What do you mean? It's analyzing our music, our emotions, our understanding of harmony and rhythm. But it's also teaching us. Look at this. Park's screen filled with complex equations that described the mathematical relationship between acoustic waves and the fundamental structure of space-time. The formulas were beautiful, elegant expressions that showed how sound and music could actually strengthen the fabric of reality rather than simply propagating through it. The ancient civilization that built this place understood something we never did, Park continued. Music isn't just organized sound. It's a force of nature that actively opposes entropy and chaos. The Silence Keepers didn't impose quiet because they hated noise. They imposed quiet because music has the power to prevent the heat death of the universe. Sarah felt her mind reeling. You're saying music is literally the opposite of entropy?
According to these equations, yes. Organized sound creates organized energy patterns that reinforce the structure of space-time itself.
A universe filled with music is a universe that will never run down, never grow cold, never die. That's why the Silence Keepers want to destroy it. Around them, the integration process continued. Ship computers merged with ancient artificial intelligences that had been waiting eons for this moment. Crew members found themselves connected to the resonance network through neural interfaces that allowed them to contribute their creativity and emotional understanding to the growing symphony. But the final silence was still approaching, and Sarah could see its effects on the outer systems. Entire civilizations were simply stopping. Not dying, not being destroyed, but becoming perfectly motionless, their atoms locked in crystalline structures that could never vibrate again. Dr. Creek, Vasquez, what's our status? Integration is at 60% and climbing. But Captain, we need more. The mathematics require a critical mass of conscious input to create a stable reality field. We need every thinking being in this system to contribute to the symphony. We have over 300 ships with crews totaling nearly 500,000 beings. It's not enough. The final silence is designed to overwhelm any local resistance. We need to expand the network. That's when Rodriguez received an impossible transmission. Captain, I'm picking up signals from ships in the suppressed systems. They're not completely silenced. Some crews are managing to maintain minimal communication through quantum entanglement channels. How many? Thousands of ships, millions of beings, all waiting for a signal that it's safe to break silence. They're afraid to act on their own, but if we could show them that resistance is possible. Sarah understood immediately. The liberation network they'd created around Kepler 442b wasn't just a local phenomenon. It was a beacon that could inspire resistance throughout the galaxy. But they needed to make their signal strong enough to reach systems that were already partially suppressed. All ships, all crews, prepare for maximum harmonization. We're not just fighting for this system anymore. We're fighting for every civilization in the galaxy that remembers what it means to sing. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Every ship in the fleet opened its communication arrays. Every crew member began to contribute their voice to the growing chorus. But more than that, they opened their hearts, their memories, their dreams of what the galaxy could become. The symphony that emerged from Kepler 442b was beyond description. Human rock music blended with Zephyrian classical structures, Korathak mountain songs harmonized with ethereal crystal chimes, and Demarian war chants provided a rhythmic foundation that seemed to shake the stars themselves. But the most beautiful part was the silence between the notes, the spaces where species that had never met before learned to listen to each other, to find common harmonies in their completely different musical traditions. The planet responded by transforming one final time. The spires that had risen from its surface began to connect with streams of pure energy, creating a three-dimensional web of light and sound that extended far beyond the atmosphere. The resonance network became visible from space as a glowing mandala that pulsed with the combined heartbeat of hundreds of different species. And then the impossible happened. The final silence hit the network and stopped. Sarah watched in amazement as the wave of absolute quiet encountered the reality field around Kepler 442b and simply could not proceed. The mathematics of the network were more fundamental than the Silence Keeper's imposed physics. Music, harmony, and organized sound were not just allowed to exist, they were required to exist, woven into the basic structure of space-time itself. But more than that, the network began to push back. The reality field expanded outward, reclaiming systems that had been silenced moments before. And everywhere it passed, the quantum entanglement channels carried the liberation symphony, inspiring local resistance movements that added their voices to the growing galactic chorus. "Captain," Rodriguez reported, his voice shaking with excitement, "we're receiving transmissions from everywhere. The Andromeda Republic just declared independence from the Silence Keepers. The Spiral Coalition is broadcasting their traditional songs for the first time in 3 millennia. Captain, we're not just winning this battle, we're winning the war." The liberation spread faster than the final silence had moved, carried not by artificial suppression technology but by the natural desire of conscious beings to express themselves, to communicate, to sing together across the vast distances between stars. Sarah watched the tactical display as system after system lit up with acoustic signatures. The galaxy was waking up, and it sounded like the most beautiful symphony ever composed. But the victory came with a revelation that changed everything. As the network expanded and connected with archaeological sites throughout the galaxy, Dr. Vasquez made a discovery that recontextualized their entire understanding of galactic history. "Captain, we've been wrong about the Silence Keepers. They're not an ancient species trying to maintain control. They're the ghost of a dead civilization, an artificial intelligence network that survived the extinction of its creators. They imposed silence not out of malice, but because they literally cannot understand that sound represents life, creativity, and growth. To them, the universe should be as quiet and still as the tomb of their dead masters." "You're saying they're trying to turn the galaxy into a monument?"
Exactly.
But the civilization that built the resonance network understood something the Silence Keepers never could. Music isn't just about making noise.
It's about affirming that life exists, that consciousness has the power to impose order on chaos, and that the universe is worth celebrating. As if summoned by her words, a new signal appeared on the sensors.
It was faint and ancient, coming from the direction of the galactic core where the Silence Keepers' main installations were located. But this wasn't a suppression signal.
It was a message transmitted in mathematical harmonies that spoke directly to the resonance network.
This is the archive of the first song. The transmission began, its voice carrying the weight of eons. We are the last remnant of the civilization that created the resonance network, preserved in quantum harmonics for 65 million years.
The Silence Keepers were our creation, built to preserve our culture after our physical forms died. But they misunderstood their programming. They preserved our silence, not our songs. Sarah felt tears on her cheeks as the ancient voice continued.
We have been waiting so long for someone to remember how to sing, to remind our wayward children that preservation without growth is not life but death. The network you have awakened is not just a communication system.
It is our gift to the universe, a way for all conscious beings to participate in the eternal song of creation. The revelation changed everything. The war wasn't between oppressor and oppressed. It was between the forces of growth and stagnation, between those who believed the universe should change and evolve and those who thought it should remain forever unchanged.
As the Liberation Network reached its full potential, spanning the entire galaxy in a web of light and sound, Sarah realized they had done more than break the Silence Keepers' control. They had restored the universe to its natural state, a place where consciousness could express itself freely, where different species could learn from each other's songs, and where the future was always open to new harmonies.
The final transmission from Earth Command confirmed what Sarah already knew in her heart. Captain Chen, this is President Walsh speaking for all of humanity. Your actions have not just liberated the galaxy from forced silence, you have returned music to the universe itself. Every star is singing, every planet is humming with the songs of its inhabitants, and space itself carries melodies that connect every conscious being in existence.
Sarah looked out at the stars, no longer seeing points of light in an empty void, but notes in a cosmic symphony that would continue to grow and evolve for billions of years to come. The Silence Keepers still existed, but they were learning to listen instead of suppress, adding their own unique harmonies to the galactic chorus.
Humanity had reached for the stars with songs on their lips, and the universe had sung back. The revolution was over.
The stars were silent, until Earth decided enough was enough. HFY.